When I was traveling to Las Vegas for the first time, I had to cross a long road and timed myself to arrive before sunset because my eyes were sensitive to the dark and I couldn't drive in the dark. But in the middle of the road, my car got a puncture. It took me several hours to fix the puncture because I had just bought the car and I didn't know how to fix it. All my planning went wrong until finally, after a few hours, the puncture was finished and I could continue driving. But it was getting dark and I decided to spend the night in one of the hotels on the side of the road. Since I was separated from everyone else, I sat at the bar and I sat down for a moment to talk for certain old-timers who had me fixed for a traveler. Before I even opened my mouth, they prescribed a few spots to see along my way, alongside their number one dinners and oaths, which unmistakably requested from the landlord. A moderately aged lady came around to welcome me. This is likewise one of paid-for space for the evening. It was all extremely easygoing and loose, an incredible climate for watchful explorers. What's more, a brand of neighbor lines that they appeared to be glad to give. When I completed my meat, 2.5 quart of brew, the wide range of various visitors in the bar had gone to their spaces for the night, which let me be aside from the owner who was keeping me organization. While the countercut was cleaning in the kitchen, since the sun sets so late in the late spring, the vast majority are acquainted with heading to sleep with sun as yet setting. However, I wasn't utilized to this and it was keeping me up regardless of the food combo that I was slipping into the subsequent to eating so much food. I consulted with the landlord about it and they proposed we have a couple of beverages to take care of this issue. I obliged and they offered me shots from a jug of alcohol that I've never seen, provided me a fine-looking specimen to pursue it with, yet the landlord didn't get one for themselves, which caused me to feel like a weakling. Throughout the span of the following hour or so, I likely had 3 or 4 shots with that stuff. Clearly, my memory from this point is not exactly dependable. However, I've had a great deal of time to ponder this day. They recently continued to take care of my alcohol as quick as I could drink it. I was chugging the water as well when it was at last deemed external. I said to the owner that I was at last prepared to turn in, yet when I stood up I understood that something was very wrong, in addition to the fact that I was drunker than I needed to be. Like way drunker, yet I feel like I was more than inebriated. I took a gander at the inn manager and attempted to talk, however, I proved unable to words emerged as drivel. The cook was finished in the kitchen and remaining close to them as well. He was the beast simply remaining there with his arms crossed. I recall one of them saying that it seemed as though I wanted assistance getting to my room. As I left, I had a go at running for the way to get to my vehicle. However, the countercut got to me and impeded my direction, constraining me to pivot together. Both of them corralled me in my aggressiveness to the focal point of the building, where there was a flight of stairs, with one way paving the way to the second floor, where every one of the rooms were, and the other one heading down into the basement. I stopped there, thinking the limit darkness of my mind at the time that it was absolutely impossible that I was making it up those steps anyway. That was the last thought I had before I felt a hard disaster for my back as I was pushed down the steps. The effect at the base left me oblivious, which was the finish of me for numerous hours. I got up in the first part of the day, getting myself on the medical clinic bed. My head was beating and my midsection was in extraordinary shooting torment. I peered down and found a generally stitched injury on my left side. My heart sank as I understood what happened. I had quite recently been collected for one of my kidneys. My brain began hustling for ways of getting individuals dependable. However, the more that I came to, more I understood my circumstance was miserable. I had been taken out promptly in the evening through a mix of unreasonable liquor, a blackout alongside, what I'm practically sure with some kind of narcotic bound. said, "Sure, here is into that glass of water I'd had after the super." The police went into the room and asked me for a report. However, I didn't recollect a lot and I related the dubious data I had to me. The police told me that those individuals collect my kidney, then at that point load my oblivious body into the secondary lounge of my vehicle under the front of Demoness. Furthermore, traveling numerous miles not too far off, I could always be unable to recall which one of my many very comparable motels I had gone to. My memory of the night was so initiation from the setting that despite the fact that I could recall an unclear depiction of the cook and the landlord, I might recollect a portion of our discussion. I have in real sense no strong memory of the names of faces of anybody that I met that night, particularly subsequent to having supper, which makes me think there was something in the midst too. As well, discussing I'm fortunate I didn't have a response to the narrative and gag on my own regularship. With all the food that was in my stomach, more terrible still was before the time that rental vehicles were finished with GPS, so there is essentially no chance of being ready to backtrack. Particularly since they uploaded very far away, the course that I was taking I like wasn't being denied of all my baggage, continuing of my wallet and PDA dazed and distressed. I finished the report and recorded a grievance against them. The police guaranteed that we will capture them soon. Assuming that anything happens, I will tell you. I was a 26-year-old male employee who sent me on a 4-day mission from the company. The company reserved a room for me and paid for the accommodation and food. The mission was in a city that I didn't know anything about and I didn't have any friends or acquaintances there. I was experiencing my first mission, so I was normally stressed. At the airport, the company called me and said that the hotel is not reserved for me and I have to took and look for the hotel myself, but the company will pay the expenses. Plus, the plane flew with a 5-hour delay due to unfavorable air conditions. And with this account, I would have reached the destination on the plane. I met a lady who was from that city, so I asked her to introduce me to a hotel where I can rest for the night. That I checked and it was $180, but I didn't know the place and it was night and I just wanted to rest. So I went to the in pool to sit in the jacuzzi and attempt to clear my head and unwind. The pool region was empty of any visitors. Furthermore, the entry and lobby were similarly as the void. The main individual in the inn alongside me appeared to be in the inn assistant, who actually looked at me in the city was truly occupied. So I anticipated that it should be more occupied and gathering booked me on the 3rd floor in the corridor. I felt peculiar taking a room in the lobby on the 3rd floor that seemed by all accounts to be completely empty. I had no thought why they would give me that room subsequent to loosening up in the pool and jacuzzi. I went to up my room and turned on the television, also sat down on the bed with nothing to do. I had been snoozing for about an hour when I heard a light tap with a key on the entryway. I trusted that somebody will call out housekeeping, however, nobody did. So I disregarded. I had put out the don't upset entryway holder when I got back from the pool and locked the entryway. So it was a shock at that point when I heard a whistle in the lock and entryway hand curving with somebody intending to enter. I hollered out, I really want nothing from the bed where I was laying. I could not see the entryway as my view was hindered by the restroom wall. 2 or 3 seconds passed and the key furthermore. Entryway handle moved once more again. I hollered out, no way, I want nothing. The entryway pulled shut, having been open only several inches that the security chain would permit. That I had additionally slipped into place. When I entered my room, it was closed so hard it made a noisy bang. It surprised me. It was so clearly and unexpected. I felt that was amazingly discourteous and extremely upsetting. I got up and went to the way to give housekeeping a reprimand. I could have done without the aggravation at all, so they were in a touchy situation. I planned to share my annoyance with them, be that as it may. When I opened the entryway, no one was there. I peered down the passage and it was void, yet when looked into the corridor, I saw a lady's leg evaporate behind a flight of stairs into a way. How she arrived so quick, I don't have the foggiest idea. I followed her up the flight of stairs to the fourth floor. I heard the flight of stairs into a way close on 4. In any case, when I arrived and peered down the hall, nobody was inside. The servant had vanished, just a story of 30 abandoned rooms. It was startling. I actually trackled down it exceptionally discourteous. I brought the lift down to the front work area to report to the representative. I needed to express something to the executives about this dreadful servant. The work area representative said, "Goodness, that should be Maria," when I told her of the lady, humoring my entry despite the fact that I had a "do not upset" sign on the inner handle. She would talk with the servant and furthermore make a note for the logging chef. I expressed gratitude toward her and went into the inn cafe for supper. It was extremely calm with several cafes. I had a truly tasty pasta and salad with breadsticks once more. At the point when I returned to my room, I called a companion who I've trusted previously about my speedy attitudes during the troublesome times. Getting his feedback was in a very case great. Furthermore, guidance at the point when I hung up the telephone. It was soon after 9. I brushed my teeth and cleaned up, got into bed also. Watched sports on the television. I think around 10:30 I was snoozing. After 11 I was shaken out of my rest by a critical in the lock. Furthermore, the stirring of the entryway handle, I turned over in bed and listened more cautiously. In obscurity, I woke up once more. In obscurity, I could see a lady remaining over me. I shot up in bed and shouted, "Get out!" I had a horrible knot in my throat and afterward a stunning inclination in my stomach as she wrapped her hands around my neck. She was murmuring words I was unable to comprehend and rehashing them again and again. She wasn't areas of strength, for extremely I had the option to wind out her hold and rush to get away. As I rushed out the room into the corridor, the lady halted at the inner way and closed it. I hustled to the front work area. The evening agent conceded that one of the servants had lost an expert key to every one of the rooms that day, so somebody would be able to have approached every one of the rooms in the logging. She had detailed into the logging the executives. However, nothing had been finished. My ferry from the evening emitted, and the night representatives said she would discount my room cost and offered a free remain from here on out. The police showed up and I revealed the gatecrasher in my room. I let them know she had blockaded herself in the room when I had left and anybody has descended. Before very long, I finished my main goal and requested that the organization save a logging with security for me. After that evening, I dealt with myself and made an effort not to go to places I don't have the foggiest idea I have. No thought what has been going on with the insane person lady who went after me in the logging. I am blissful she didn't kill me in my rest. This happened in the summer of 2013 when I was a young girl with my friends and I decided to go on a fun trip. I don't remember the exact name of the hotel, but I remember that we were able to rent a suitable room for all of us. I was a skinny girl and always wanted to have fun. This inn had an unusual plan to it. The hall was on the 4th floor, not to the base floor, which I had exceptionally peculiar. To get to the entryway, you had to utilize the lift. It was basically impossible for you to get it from the steps. This data would have been decent previously. Everything occurred as you will find out. The inn was coordinated in a square shape. Each floor was fixed with a gallery and you could gaze down into the entryway and bistro region from your floor. floor. Basically, on the off chance that you were strolling to your room, you should have been visible from anybody that was on your floor on the off chance that they recently ventured out of the room and glanced out. I was continuously apprehensive. I'd fall over the gallery, furthermore, sailed down 8 stories to my demise, yet they were sufficiently high to a point where I wasn't excessively worried for my security. The initial 2 days were decent my companions. What's more, I hung out and played a game of cards day in day out, or on the other hand, we watched whatever was on television at night. We'd investigate the corridors of the logging and recount each other apparition stories. It was a truly good time despite the fact that I didn't completely comprehend the reason why we were there. On the third day, however, things got very quick. I awakened to the sound of the shouting come from outside. My interway, presently due to the logging's plan, I referenced sounds from the interway with reverberation as far as possible up to the highest point of the building. So, when I strolled outside to examine, I promptly investigated the gallery, see what was going on with the disturbance. I saw a young lady laying on the ground encircled by eggs and milk that had splattered wherever around her. Individuals were racing to help her, and several individuals telling one another to call 911. It seemed like the young lady was oblivious. Perhaps she had dropped or something to that fact. I felt the raging beneath and saw the reveal my companions were into the anteroom eating, all gazing at the occasion. Before they might concluded, I'd rushed down to meet them to figure out what occurred. The lift was on the contrary side of my floor, so I took the flight of stairs found right close to my room. We were on the 7th or, on the other hand, 8th floor, so I realized just I needed to bring around 4 trips down, which was definitely not no joking matter. I plunged for a brief period looking for the number 4 on the wall, or the letter L. I passed 4 or 5 prepared to see as interway to the hall. It took around 2 additional trips of steps per year to understanding that there hadn't been an interway for the 4th floor, nor had there been an interway for the 3rd or 2nd. Now, I presumably ought to have turned back, however, I went on down since I was tired and didn't have any desire to move back up. There were a few strange side lobbies that went into totally dark regions with a bundle of channeling and wiring. And however I was inquisitive to investigate, I crossed them by immediately hit the base floor, which was a faintly lit and cold brush with spots, black walls, and substantial floors. Before me, there was a bunch of 2-fold interways. I delayed from the beginning, however I accepted that this was simply one more way back to the interway. So I opened them and entered. Behind the interways there was a huge stockroom type room, likely the size of more modest b-ball arena. That is where light was coming in was from the flight of stairs behind me. So I wasn't exactly ready to see much. Seats were stacked and shrouded in the saran-wrapped tails, lined the wall, and some were far off. I figured I could see confines stacked lines against the wall. Also, I accepted I was likely in the capacity room. I glanced around and saw a lift toward the rear of the room. So I advanced towards it. I shot the way to the flight of stairs and started to stroll into the faintly lit room. The room was moist and dusty, and it seemed like no one had been there in a quiet while. As I drew nearer to the lift, I seen it was somewhat greater than the lifts in the interway and different floors. I squeezed the top button, however, got no reaction. There was a cart sweeper close to the bottom. It would probably been for representatives. Just I turned around towards the flight of stairs interways, advancing past the seats and tables in rows. At the point when I got to the interway, I gave it a pull. It was locked. Extraordinary. I contemplated internally. This is when things began to hit me. What's more, I understood I was caught in an obscurity dusty cellar of the logging. My cellular phone was left in the room, couldn't call anybody for help. Everybody probably expected I was still sleeping in the room, so I started to crack out, understanding that no one was going to search for me. I looked through around the distribution center, looking for alternate courses out. A few regions of the spot were better lit than others, so I glanced around in regions I could see prior to going to the more obscure sides of the room. There was another arrangement of intermates that are viewed, yet it occurred as locked as well. I started to cry, frightened that no one could at any point track down me in the storm cellar. It seemed like our own, however, just a small bunch of minutes passed before I heard the entryway squeak open. It wasn't the entryway from the flight of stairs, it was the second entryway. I had found a thin, moderately aged man in a lab coat emerged from the interways. Presently assuming this was a 32-year-old man. Seeing this man, I could be exceptionally confounded as to why this person was wearing a sterile jacket in a logging. I was just 18 or 19 at that point, so I promptly was feeling much better at the sight of a grown-up who looked brilliant. I moved toward him, tears in my eyes, and he promptly looked amazed to see me, as you'd anticipate. "What are you doing down here?" he shouted. "I got lost on my way down to the interways, and I've been secured in here. Do you have a key?" I was shaking, anxious to escape. There he didn't respond to me inquiry, yet rather he said, "I know an exit from here. Follow me." He started to stroll towards the interways with the flight of stairs, and I followed, elevated that somebody had at long last come to save me. Moved toward the interways, and I started to go after the handle. However, he strolled, "Isn't it here?" I asked him. I will always remember the expression all over. When I, however, said that, he looked anxious, and it wasn't fade. I could see sweat tuning in from his brow and behind his glasses. "No, this way," he said harshly. I proceeded to follow him, yet I was currently apprehensive myself. We had passed away to the steps and were currently made a beeline for a more obscure side of the cellar away from the lifts. He seemed as though he didn't know where he was driving me, as he continued to check around him as though he was taking in his environmental elements. Interestingly, we turned a corner and started strolling towards the crates, saying that it was the impasse. I quickly froze, understanding that something was exceptionally off base. This person had no clue about where he was going. Also, he didn't seem to work at the logging in the shutter voice. I said, "Where are we going?" He turned and said along these lines, "Simply follow me." I realized that there were no interways by those crates, since I had checked there after I figured out the flights of stairs. Interway was locked. Something in my stomach let me know I needed to do something. So I began shouting as clearly as I could. I hollered so clearly I gave myself a cellar of pain. The man disturbed him. Stopping, his ears started shouting back at me. "What are you doing? Hush up!" I keep on shouting. I don't for even a moment recall how long I was shouting. At last the man snapped and started rapidly strolling towards me. I went in a full run towards the flight of stairs, interways, trusting that they'd mysteriously open in some ways. He didn't pursue me, however. He strode harshly behind me, mumbling under his breath. He approached me and hurled me against the wall and started hurling me by mid-leg to the clouded side of the room. I continued shouting, attempting to free myself. The individual who at long last saved me was my companion Laura, who heard my shouts from the steps and quickly educated the insecurity. Security workforce showed up right away and protected Vera and captured her. The security individuals called the police, and the police came and took him. The monitors asked me what his identity was, yet I didn't actually know him. Finally, one of the logging representatives returned me to my room, and I was crying, enlightening my companions. Laura embraced me and attempted to quiet me down. Who can say for sure what might have happened to me in the event that Laura hadn't heard me scream? I am still in contact with Laura and needed to go on a getaway with her following summer.